What are compression fractures? These can be incredibly painful and also incredibly debilitating. On an x-ray, they can look like something very, very small, like a hairline fracture, but cause you lots of discomfort in your day-to-day activities. Today, we're going to explore exactly what they are, how they happen, and what you can do to manage them in the long run. So my name is Dr. Jeremy Andrews. I'm a doctor of chiropractic here at West Chiropractic in Surrey, and we help people with chronic low back and knee pain avoid a lifetime of painkillers and surgery. So the reason this topic cropped up is someone very close to me actually has just suffered a vertebral fracture. So I haven't actually asked her permission to talk about this, so I'll just keep it very vague. But ultimately, someone very close to us had a car accident. She's okay, but obviously struggling with whiplash going forwards, and she had a fracture, a T3, T4, which is around this area here. We're unsure as to how it happened, but ultimately she's in a lot of discomfort, a lot of pain through her neck and her back. And this highlights to me that actually fractures, even in a young age, we think it's quite an older generation thing once the bones have started to weaken, but it can happen in a young age. And she's been very confused about what to do, what happened. The advice is very conflicting. I think we see this a lot of times with compression fractures. There isn't a very clear protocol of what needs to happen. So I'm going to try and help with that today and give you some really clear advice of what is happening and what you can do going forwards. So the compression fracture happens when the front part of the vertebra collapses. So if the vertebra is here, that front part just bends in like this and it gets a narrowing through there. That'd be a wedge fracture. And you have a crush fracture, which is when the vertebra completely collapses like this. That's not as common. It's more the wedge when you put pressure through that top front of the vertebral body, putting pressure on there. So why did this happen? Well, it's often due to weakened bones from osteoporosis. That generally happens later on in life. Females, postmenopausal females, are more susceptible to this, but it also happens in males as well. So the vertebrae, they really support your body weight and your movement without any issue when they're healthy. But when your bones do become brittle or weak due to osteoporosis and age-related changes, certain movements like bending forward or lifting heavy objects can cause that vertebra to collapse under pressure. This can lead to real pain, mobility issues, difficulty getting on with daily activities. So the best way to describe this is essentially like a crunchy chocolate bar. Essentially a crunchy chocolate bar. So if you look at the crunchy chocolate bar, you've got a hard casing around the outside and you've got those thin honeycomb struts on the inside. Now, as we get older, those honeycomb struts get smaller and they get weaker, they get more hollow. The osteoporotic look of a bone on an x-ray is like moth-eaten. So you can see there's going to be big holes in the middle of the bone. That's going to leave them way more susceptible to having fractures and loading up through that. Younger people, if you're not suffering from osteoporosis, similar to the person that's very close to me, then there needs to be some sort of big impact to actually cause a compression fracture or wedge fracture or crush fracture, like a car accident, like a skiing injury, like a fall on your bum from a weight. Needs to be a lot of force to put pressure through the bone if it's a healthy bone. So some people can develop compression fractures with their lifestyle, their health, their genetics. So a couple of risk factors to keep in mind. Age is the most common one. So as we get older, particularly after 50, our bones naturally weaken. Osteopenia, that's the prelude to osteoporosis. So osteoporosis, it's the leading cause, particularly in women, especially after menopause. They have reduced estrogen levels, which affects the bone quality, bone resorption. If you're thinner individuals, they're more at risk because they have less bone density. They've got weaker bones, tends to be. And then if there's a family history of medical conditions of osteoporosis or thyroid disorders, celiac disease, these can also increase your risk of getting compression fractures. Smoking, excessive alcohol use, bad nutrition, lack of exercise all contribute to weaker bones over time. A German scientist back in the 1800s called Wolf, who said, bone adapts to the mechanical demands that's placed upon it. So the more resistance work you do, the stronger the bones are going to get. Well, let's get into how to protect and maintain strong bones and the key to avoiding compression fractures. So let me go through 4 critical steps you can take. Avoid excessive forward flexion. So don't round your back, especially when lifting or bending. It puts huge amounts of pressure on the vertebra. So think about when you're bending down, pick something up from the floor, keep it nice and straight, and that's going to reduce the risk of getting a compression fracture. So you really want to make sure that when you're lifting or using your legs, keep your back nice and straight, hinge at the hips and engage your core. So if you can see me here, so essentially when we lift, you want to avoid this movement here, bending that back. It's going to put a lot of compression on the front of the vertebra. Don't do this, okay? So it's keep the back straight, bend your knees, let the knees go all the way down, keeping the back straight like this, and then We're pulling up like that, using the hamstrings. I love to use like a Romanian deadlift, to use the hamstrings like this, keeping that back nice and straight, not rounding. And we're picking the object up like this, pushing through the glutes, pushing through the hamstrings. Avoid high impact activities like running, jumping. These can also increase the risk of trauma to the spine if you are already susceptible to compression fractures. So like walking, swimming, yoga, they're gonna strengthen your spine, strengthen your bones without unnecessary stress. It's a great way to move. Number 3 is to practice good sitting and lifting mechanics. So like the plopping problem, we call it. So sitting down hard on a chair, especially with a rounded spine, creates a sudden compressive force on your vertebra. So really lower yourself down into that chair nice and slowly. Keep your back straight, supported, and avoid slouching while sitting. Always use a lumbar support or a cushion underneath your back. That's going to help take pressure off your back. The plopping method is like this. So we just sit down like that. It's going to put a lot of force into the base of the spine. So really make sure when we're sitting, we sit down, hands go back. Keep the glutes nice and controlled. Squeeze your core, take a lot of pressure off your back as well. Nice and slow. And number 4 is going to be strengthening your bones with nutrition and exercise. So nutrition, the research suggests that eating a diet rich in raw calcium, vitamin D supports bone density. So like leafy greens, almonds are really good options. And then exercising. So weight bearing exercises such as walking or resistance training with weights. That helps to keep your bones really, really strong. Strengthening your core muscles, back muscles, that's also going to help in the long run as well. So when should you be concerned about your bone health or risk of compression fractures? And also what can you do? So the gold standard for assessing the bone density or the quality of your bones is a DEXA scan. So this scan assesses the strength, determines your risk factor for osteopenia and osteoporosis. So if you're over 50 or if you have any risk factors we talked about, it's best to talk to your GP about getting a DEXA scan. Getting it early is also really, really key. So identifying if those bones are weakening, and you can take steps to prevent the fractures before they happen in the long run. Well, what do we do as chiropractors, and how can we help you here at West Chiropractic? We essentially are going to support your spine health at every stage of your life. So if you're worried about back pain, bone health, or you want to strengthen your spine, we can help you with that. So we would do a full spinal assessment. We'd understand exactly where the curves are in your spine by taking x-rays, looking at your posture and checking your overall bone health. And then we give you exercise guidance, adjustment guidance, create a personalized plan, not only to improve your posture, your position of your spine, but how you can move safely and build strength to put more adaptive stress onto your bones to get them stronger in the long run. Chiropractic adjustments, they maintain the optimal spine health, help your nervous system, reduce strain on your body, especially as you age in the long run. So thank you for today. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel for our regular updates. And as always, you can grab copies of my best-selling books here, How to Transform Your Back and The Secret Cure to Back Pain, How to Avoid a Lifetime of Painkillers and Surgery. Many thanks. I'll see you next time.